When it comes to the animal buddies, those helpfully loyal steeds of the Kongs who first debuted in Donkey Kong Country, every fan of the series has their favorite. Maybe it's Rambi the Rhino, the most ubiquitous of the bunch, and just immensely satisfying to ride around as the on-ground powerhouse. Perhaps it's Enguarde the Swordfish who floats your boat, adding some much-needed variety to underwater levels and giving the Kongs a fighting chance against K. Rool's marine forces. Or maybe you're in awe of the innovation of Squitter, a spider that creates custom platforms within a platform game. He did it first, you fraud. You might even be deep in the weeds of DKU invasive brain growth and argue that Perry the Parallel Bird is your wing king. Or maybe, this squirrel, who doesn't do anything but smirk at the camera. We named him Cyril because even his creators just didn't care. Let us know in the comments if Cyril is your favorite. But there's one animal buddy who seems to get overlooked far more than his station would suggest. Given that he plays a somewhat prominent role in one of the most beloved entries in the entire Donkey Kong series, it's always a little surprising. Maybe it's because he was one of the few animal buddies of the Rare era who served as a direct replacement for a pre-existing character. See, Winky the Frog was adored by a contingent of Donkey Kong Country players, probably because he's a big frog, so yeah. But his errant jumping and hit detection was more wonky than Winky. So the DKC2 team replaced him in the direct sequel, shunting Winky off to the Monkey Museum and introducing Rattley the Rattlesnake, a springy serpent with a slightly cleaner jump mechanic. So there's been some animosity there in the fandom. But Rattley didn't do anything wrong, don't take it out on him, he's just trying to get by, same as you and me. And the surprising thing about Rattley is, he seems to be a big damn deal within the world of the Donkey Kong universe. At least, more than you might imagine. More than Winky. Let's explore the fame and renown of Rattley. Rattley first debuted in Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Conquest, as one of the few natives of Crocodile Isle not loyal to K. Rool. When Crocodile Isle was destroyed at the end of the game, it's assumed that Rattley migrated to Donkey Kong Island along with the other animal buddies the Kongs had met there, as well as the members of the Kong family who had been working on the island at the time. However, his only other appearance, other than that one time when the video game multiverse collapsed and he possessed the Yoshi body, was in Donkey Kong Land 2, the pseudo-remake of Donkey Kong Country 2 for the Game Boy. And look, I'm not going to use this video to argue over whether Donkey Kong Land 2 is a separate canonical adventure or not. That comes later. But that was it. 2 games, all within 10 months of one another. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Rattley didn't even make the trek to the Northern Hemisphere. And after Donkey Kong Land 3, animal buddy appearances have been few and far between. Oh, sure, they'll still show up, but it's in a far more limited capacity. And even then, it's usually only the elite. Unless you talk or think about Donkey Kong Country 2 on a daily basis, which I indeed do, Rattley the Rattlesnake probably hasn't even leaped through your brain in months, maybe even years. Which is why Rattley's in-universe celebrity is so astonishing. For whatever reason, Rattley gets referenced far more within the world of the Donkey Kong universe and the worlds of the Nintendo multiverse than he does in our own reality. And I mean, far more. Out of these 2 animal buddies, Squitter probably gets 70 to 80% of all discussions in the Donkey Kong fan community. And Billie Eilish likes Clapper, that's cool. Or temporarily lukewarm. But in universe, Man, nobody ever talks about that cool-ass spider with the sneakers, or the second favorite seal of 1995. But in the DKU, everyone's still prattling about Rattley. See, it all started in Banjo-Kazooie. Yeah, Banjo-Kazooie. It's a Donkey Kong spin-off from a certain point of view, and it's firmly set in the Rare Archipelago, the chain of islands that Diddy Kong Racing established as where most Rare games from the 1990s and 2000s take place, and Donkey Kong Country games still take place in. And it was the first game post Donkey Kong Land 2 to reference Rattley. This is owing to much of the Banjo-Kazooie team being that original group of creatives from the first two Donkey Kong Country games, including Steve Males, designer of Rattley. Why, there's even this snake in the desert world of Gobi's Valley that looks an awful lot like our coiled friend. Now, Histup has no seeming relation other than also being a rattlesnake who exists in this shared universe. In this case, being charmed by the character of Ruby, who already has a pet named Toots. Wait, do you think Histup and Toots didn't get along? Do you think Toots tried to eat Histup? And that's why Ruby gave him up to King Jingling by the time of Banjo-Tooie? Anyway, one of the trivia questions in Grunty's Furnace Fun near the end of Banjo-Kazooie actually brings up Rattley as one of the possible answers in a "which character has this dumb voice?" multi-choice question. Along with Ruby himself, Rattley is listed to throw off those who may have been vaguely able to recall what the snake in Banjo-Kazooie was called, only to go too far back in the recesses of their brain to Donkey Kong Country 2. But wait, why is Rattley spelled Ratlee? That's not correct. Well, we can surmise that Gruntilda had at least read up on the news stories about Crocodile Isle's destruction. After all, it was big news. An entire neighboring island blew up in apocalyptic hellfire. That would have been a traumatic event in the Rare Archipelago. I'm sure Grunty was glued to the TV in the days and weeks after, watching documentaries and learning all of the errant details, including the snake that assisted the Kongs en route to the island's end. So she knew of Rattley, but didn't know or care enough to get the spelling right in her stupid quiz designed to slow down Banjo and Kazooie. She also probably didn't know how to spell his name, because her surname is Winky Bunyan. It's not Rattley Bunyan. If it was Rattley Bunyan, she would know how to spell his name. And you have to remember, this was before the era of smartphones and Wikipedia. It's not like Banjo could pull out his iPhone and say, actually, Gruntilda, Rattley is spelled Rattly. Your entire quiz is invalidated, and we win by disqualification. Nowadays, you could just get off on this technicality. This is why we haven't had a new Banjo-Kazooie game since 2008. It just wouldn't work in this modern era. So yeah, people knew Rattley, like this witch. But Rattley was also venerated by Kong civilization, which is why they honored him with this bridge. Now, it's a small bridge. It's certainly not an impressive bridge scale-wise. It's not even the biggest bridge the Kongs had ever been on the Nintendo GameCube. But still an honor though. Look at that impressive stonework. I reckon that took some time. And if someone wants to name a bridge after you, put your little face on it, well, you'd have to be some kind of a narcissist to be bothered by its size. Unless you were so humble you didn't want any bridge at all. Rattley's probably somewhere in the middle though, because he did get a bridge. He actually got two of them, and they're both in Donkey Konga 2. A bridge designed to help the citizens get from one side of an uncrossable gap to another. Sort of like a bouncy snake would if you had one underneath your body. That's a connection. Now, this is a seaside community scene in Donkey Konga 2. which seems to take place on these offshore islets in the DK Isles, just off the coast of the Congo jungle. The city skyline and mountains suggest that these are actually the worlds from Donkey Kong Land, Big Ape City and Monkey Mountain specifically, which would place this somewhere in the port area of Big Ape City. You can see elsewhere here that Rambi is also honored by being the little horsies in a carousel at the carnival. So yeah, the Kong Society loves to honor the animal buddies. More so than Kong developers do at any rate. Now let's jump up to 2017 and to another location that's made the case for being the setting of the original Donkey Kong arcade game. And look, I'm not going to use this video to argue over whether Big Ape City is a separate city in the continuity. That comes later. But Super Mario Odyssey's new Donk City is obviously loaded with references to both the arcade original and later Donkey Kong titles from Rare. Various characters get honored with street names, including Rambi Street, Espresso Street, Squawks Park, and Rattley Street. Yes, Mayor Pauline apparently thought well enough of Rattley to pressure the city council to name a street after him. But once again, his name is misspelled. Here it's been given an E that never existed before, but at least it's closer than Gruntilda's embarrassing attempt. What is it about Rattley getting mentioned in other franchises and having his name bungled? 1. It's bizarre that it's even happened, let alone twice. And 2, I hope they keep it up. Have Snake from Animal Crossing be like, yeah, I'm Snake. I call myself that because I'm emulating my hero, Rattley, whose name is spelled R-A-D-D-L-I-E. He's my hero, so I know how to spell his name. So why is Rattley so well known compared to the likes of Squitter or Ellie, to the point where such wildly contrasting characters like Gruntilda Winky Bunyan and Mayor Pauline both know of him, and the Kongs dedicated a bridge to him? Well, I think it's because it makes for a great story. Rattley's a reptile, same as the Kremlings. Rattley chafed under K. Rool's leadership and utterly ruined his stewardship over the island's environmental well-being, to the point where an entire wing of his castle was just used to store toxic waste. So he threw in with the Kongs and migrated to Donkey Kong Island. It reminds us that no matter who's in charge, no matter what the political situation is in a country or region, there are still good people living there trying to do the right thing and make the world a better place. And yeah, I think that's worth a bridge or two. Probably not enough to get your name right though.